you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, subscribe now. We have news stories every day. Now, let's go. I first met Alice at a friend's party in Boston. It was one of those lively gatherings where people drank cheap cocktails out of plastic cups and swapped stories about college and half-baked travel plans. I was 26, she was 24. She stood out like a dazzling spark, a radiant smile, bright eyes that gleamed with youthful optimism. Within minutes, we clicked, chatting about music, travel, and the best clam chowder spots in town. Me smiling, I can't believe you've never tried that cafe on Beacon Street. We have to go sometime. Alice, grinning, then let's do it. I'm up for an adventure any day. We found ourselves sneaking off from the crowd to talk more privately near the apartment balcony. Within weeks, I realized I wanted more than flirtation. Her laughter, her impulsive nature, she was so alive. Problem was, she lived in another city, Providence, an hour's drive away, but I felt drawn to her. Sure, we could make it work. We dated long distance for several months. Almost every weekend, I'd drive to Providence or she'd come up to Boston. Each departure left me missing her more. Finally, I suggested she move in with me. She hesitated, talked about her parents, her life in Providence, but eventually agreed. Alice, with a small, excited laugh, I'll pack what I can fit in my car. Let's see how it goes. I think I want to be with you every day. I couldn't contain my happiness. Soon enough, we were sharing my modest one-bedroom in Boston's South End. I worked at a software startup, and she was between jobs, figuring out her next step. She traveled back to her parents' place on weekends, and it was just to help them out or deal with some family things. But I never pried. We'd only been living together a few months, and I was smitten. Over the course of a year and a half, Alice and I grew closer. At least I thought so. I was so taken by her youthful energy that I barely noticed any red flags. Eventually, I couldn't imagine life without her. During a short trip to the Cape Cod shoreline, I proposed one evening on the beach, presenting a small ring with trembling fingers. Me, voice shaking, Alice, will you marry me? Let's make it official. She teared up, nodded, and whispered yes. My heart soared. The next weeks were a blur. Telling friends, drafting invitations, discussing wedding venues, I'd never been so sure of a future. However, I realized I still hadn't met her parents and that it was finally time for formal introductions. We planned to go soon. She insisted we wait until everything was in order. They're old-fashioned, she told me, and unpredictable. I shrugged it off, trusting her. Then came the day that changed everything. Alice left on her usual weekend trip to Providence, saying she needed to see her parents. She accidentally left her laptop behind, lying on our living room table. I'd never snooped in her personal devices, but I needed to check an email from our shared wedding planner, and she had saved the contact info on her laptop. When I opened her laptop, her social media account was logged in. My curiosity spiked. We'd never hidden passwords from each other, but something about her hush-hush visits to Providence made me pause. I told myself, just a quick glance, we're engaged, no secrets, right? I clicked. A series of messages popped up. The first few were harmless chats with friends. Then I found a long conversation with someone named Becky, an old friend from Providence, it seemed. Scrolling down, my stomach tightened. The messages revealed a secret so big it felt unreal. Alice had a 10-year-old son she'd left with her parents, a boy named Jacob who had no father in his life. My mind reeled. 10 years old. That meant she had him at 14. She never told me, never even hinted. And the conversation indicated she considered me a potential father figure, possibly planning to integrate me into her son's life after the wedding. But from the tone, it sounded less like a plan, more like a desperate scheme. She'd hidden him for years, ashamed or fearful of judgment. I also gleaned that she rarely spent much time with him. Her parents were basically raising the boy. Me, reading aloud, handshaking, Becky, I'm sorry I can't keep living two lives. I just can't tell him. Not yet. He'd never understand. I felt sick, so this was why she vanished every weekend. The boy who called her Mommy was waiting in Providence, while I remained clueless in Boston. I closed the laptop, heart hammering. We'd already sent out wedding invites. How could she do this? Go through all these elaborate steps without telling me about her child? I spent the rest of the day in numb shock, pacing the apartment, ignoring my phone. Sunday came, and she returned in the afternoon, brimming with talk about a florist for the wedding. I sat silently on the couch until she noticed my expression. Alice, faltering, You okay? You look upset. I motioned for her to sit. She did, confusion etched across her face. Me, voice unsteady. You've lied to me, Alice, about a massive part of your life. You have a 10-year-old son. Why didn't you tell me? Her eyes went wide, color draining from her cheeks. She opened her mouth, but no words came. Tears pooled as she realized I'd discovered the truth. Me, voice rising. When were you planning to mention him, After the wedding? Next year? Were you going to drop him on me one day and say, surprise, you're dad? That's insane. She broke into sobs trying to explain, but her words were jumbled. She admitted she had Jacob very young, kept it a secret because she feared I'd reject her or that it would ruin her fresh start in Boston. Alice, choking on tears. I was terrified. Terrified you'd run, call me names, judge me. You have no idea what it's been like. Me, angrily, I proposed to you, planning a life together, while you hid your own child from me. Did you think that was fair? Who do you think I am? She pleaded for forgiveness, insisting she truly loved me and that she was just too scared, but I felt a cold fury. All that time I believed she spent with her parents, she was also ignoring her own son. Me, bitterness flooding my voice. What kind of mother does that? You abandon your kid to your parents so you can enjoy a carefree life with me. That's messed up. She sobbed harder, unable to refute my accusations. Finally, I stood. Me, get out. Go be with your child. This wedding is off. She stared at me, tears streaming, trembling hands clasped, but she didn't fight me. Alice, I'm sorry. I just wanted a chance to be happy, to be normal for once. Me, normal. You just destroyed any chance of trust we had. Alice left that night. I texted our wedding planner, canceled everything in a blur of emotional torment. My family and friends were shocked. The invites had gone out, but I abruptly told them the wedding was off, no explanation given. I retreated into my anger and heartbreak, ignoring Alice's calls and messages. Weeks turned into months. I tried to refocus on work, but my mind wandered. She'd avoided my questions about her weekly trips, about her family. She must have believed that forging a new life with me was simpler if she kept Jacob hidden, but how could I trust someone capable of that level of deceit? During that time, I vented to close friends, half of them urging me to walk away for good, the other half saying maybe she panicked out of fear. Some nights, I stared at old photos of us, her radiant smile at the beach, the two of us dancing at a friend's wedding. Love didn't vanish overnight, but betrayal overshadowed everything. One day, an email pinged into my work inbox. It was from Alice, an address I blocked on my phone. She wrote about how she told her parents about her broken engagement, how Jacob missed her, how she was trying to be a better mother now. She said she'd understood if I hated her, but pleaded for one chance to explain in person. Alice email excerpt. I know I hurt you. I kept Jacob's secret because I was a coward. I was ashamed of my past, my mistakes. I didn't want to lose you, but I ended up losing you anyway. Please at least let me talk, face to face. My heart twisted. Did I still love her? Yes, a part of me did. Could I forgive her? That was less certain. My rational side said, she lied to you, she's manipulative. My emotional side whispered, she's the only woman you ever really wanted to marry. I wrote back, agreeing to a coffee meeting. The day arrived, but I froze, canceling at the last minute. Over text, I mumbled some excuse about a work emergency. She replied with heartbreak in her words, but didn't push further. Another month drifted by. Some nights I found myself replaying her tearful confession, picturing her regret. Others, I pictured the innocent boy Jacob who had no father figure, no stable family environment. Me talking to a friend over beers, what if she's sincere? She might have made a terrible decision out of fear. Could we fix it? Friend, dude, do you really want to be with someone who can hide a whole child for over a year? Marriage is about honesty. I sighed, because that was the crux of it. Marriage was about honesty, and she'd shattered that trust. But I missed her laugh, the way she'd rest her head on my shoulder when she was sleepy, the spark in her eyes when we danced. Could those memories outweigh the betrayal? As time marched on, I realized I couldn't make an easy choice. My family told me I'd dodged a bullet. My heart told me it wasn't that simple. Meanwhile, Alice occasionally tried to reach me through mutual friends or an old coworker of mine who knew her. She passed messages she was taking therapy, learning to be a better mom to Jacob wanting to see me. I remained in Boston, living alone in the same apartment we once shared. The wedding invitations were still stacked in a closet, a painful reminder of the future that never happened. Often I'd stand in that closet staring at the box, wondering if forgiveness was possible. Me to the box of invites, half laughing, half crying. Was it all a lie or just a misguided attempt at normalcy? I still haven't made a decision. I love her. That's the unvarnished truth. But can I marry someone who lied about having a child, who effectively abandoned him to chase a fantasy with me? She wants to fix things, but I can't erase the betrayal. Maybe I'll meet Alice again. Maybe I'll confront her directly about the life she led in Providence, about that sweet boy who deserves a better mother. Maybe we'll attempt to rebuild trust from the ground up, or maybe I'll walk away again certain we're beyond repair. For now, I linger in limbo. Friends urge me to find someone new, but my heart still clings to her memory. I keep thinking, if she just told me from the start, I might have embraced Jacob as my own, yet she chose deception. That choice changed everything. Me closing my eyes. I love you, Alice, more than words can say. Now, I don't know if I ever can again. That's where our story stands, half finished, suspended between heartbreak and longing, between anger and empathy. Only time will reveal if love is enough to overcome a lie this big. Right now, I remain torn, loving a woman I can't yet forgive, mourning a future that was so close, but so tragically out of reach.